On this episode of AV Week, is hybrid just a fad, or is going to stick around for a while? Global distribution and what it means for the industry, and managing the remote worker. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 556, recorded Friday, April 15th, 2022, The Internationalist.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Draper.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week, first and foremost, I like to go ladies first, so Alexis LeBroy from PRG out of the D.C. area. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for letting me join you today.
Absolutely. Closer to Alexis than me is Mr. Brock McGinnis up in the Canada way from Nationwide. Welcome, sir.
Always a pleasure to be here, Tim, and somewhat surprising to be invited back.
You've been invited back for 10 years, dude. You can't get rid of me. And a young man I got to spend a few days with in Houston, Chris Miller from PSNI. Welcome, sir.
Well, I missed the young man part, but I'll take it. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. You can check out some stuff that we got as well as Mr. Farisi from Commercial Integrator. Dan ran a very nice piece on the PSNI Super Summit that we had a couple weeks ago. You can also check out on Facebook, on PSNI's Facebook page, a live stream that we did with a number of AV users from around the country. And two things with that. Number one, the team that put that on, the production team, it was Corey's AV out of Oklahoma, and they just did a unique presentation of the virtual interviewees that I had. It was a LED screen behind me. Everybody's heads were kind of there, and then the content was quite good as well. But there's two things that are there that are kind of fantastic to watch. So check that out on the PSNI Facebook page. First story comes to us from SCN and AV Network. ADI is going global, even more global. They're unifying the Pro AV brand under ADI Global Distribution. This comes on the heels about 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, of picking up Herman Pro AV. But this adds to the Herman Pro AV, adds AV to the security part. The security part was already a global distribution, but this part adds, all of the AV stuff that they've got, over 100 branches, 10 or 15 regions throughout the world. Chris, I'm going to start with you on this. Being the kind of the head of PSNI, you guys have made strategic growth over the last 5 years now, expanding your network globally. When you look at your members and the folks that are involved in PSNI, and you look at things like what ADI is doing, what Exertis and Almo, or Exertis has done with picking up Almo, you've got Maverick, you've got the folks at TD Cenex now, which is one of your guys' partners. What does this global growth in distribution mean to AV dealers around the world and those that are looking to expand beyond their borders?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and the article's interesting in the fact that we could go a couple of different directions with this. Certainly, this is a trend of acquisitions and positioning that we expected to take place, and it positions distributors in a very strong role to, in many cases, to manage and control distribution channels. And certainly as we see this take place from a global standpoint, you're right. We use several of those that you mentioned. If you look globally, Midwich. If you look in North America, Cenex. If you look globally, Annixter. And what's happening is, as they expand, obviously they're increasing their volume. They work on reasonably small margins, so they may have to move in higher volume, and they can control to some degree the channel. You will find that the win for integrators is they tend to have access versus buying from the manufacturer direct. They tend to have more credit lines, so they can actually go from multiple distributors and have complete bandwidth of credit lines as well. You find that global distribution, in many cases, those manufacturers want that product out of their location, and they move that directly into those distributors. One of the things that they've done as a back office for manufacturers is, first of all, they do it better than manufacturers typically do. And it's a good decision on many of their parts. It was hard for so many of our integrators worldwide to accept that, because there was a period of time for years where you interfaced very directly with the manufacturer. And you don't see that as much unless you're a very large partner or a very large player. And in those cases, there are those direct contacts. In short, it's good. They provide value-add services. In fact, you'll see, like you said, in some cases, they provide parity. So if you're a smaller integrator or you don't have bandwidth, you mentioned Herman, you mentioned some of these others, they can provide those value-add services, increase labor, other things that typically wouldn't be bundled with any manufacturer. So to that extent, it's good for some, not all, for those who don't want those services. It does create some parity. But overall, distributors have been good to raise customer service. They handle the back office. They're going to take returns. They're going to have more inventory. They track data to know what buying trends are. They know what to have in their warehouse. They've become sophisticated machines in the back office distribution. Globally, Europe has been doing this much longer in distribution than the States, for say. I don't know specifically about Canada. In some cases, yes, and we've seen that. But Europe is very used to it. APAC is very used to it. Many of our CSPs worldwide are also distributors or are somewhat involved in repping product lines. So it's really different. We do not have global pricing. It is hard to determine that. Even though they have global distribution, they're still working within silos of these manufacturers who then control so much of that. So it's even a challenge, and we're in 6 continents, 230 cities around the world, and the problem and parity is almost the same from Finland to Argentina and everywhere in between.
Yeah. Alexis, PRG is a live events company, but you've also worked in the integration field as well. Talk for a second about this drive to globalization from the customer side, and what if you're not an integrator that's been pushed, right? Give them kind of a sense of what that looks like, and what maybe something like this means for those folks who, you're stepping out beyond your own borders for the first time.
I think that it could potentially level the playing field a little bit for maybe some of the smaller players. So maybe a company that is based here and they want to expand to Europe or vice versa. A lot of the integrators, they work with, they have the best relationship with one of the distributors, and that's their go-to company for distribution. Well, you mentioned earlier, you've got Exertis, Stampede, Almo all combining over the last year and a half, I guess.
Yeah, basically.
So if you went to Stampede before, then now you've got a bigger footprint to be able to get what you need in the States, to get what you need in Europe, through Exertis and through Almo as well. So I think that it could potentially level the playing field for some of those folks. And hopefully they can, if they want to expand, they have options to be able to get product, to be able to get what they need, to have those same relationships with the same person that they've been working with and be able to expand.
Brock, I've known you long enough to have heard some of the stories of you putting up discos throughout different parts of Europe, even from Canada. So talk for a second about the differences between, 20 years ago, before the rise of all of these global distribution, and today, where you've got folks that do have the ability, TD SYNNEX is one of them, right? That they do have the ability to kind of touch anywhere in the world you want to go. The benefit of that, and maybe some of the drawbacks of some of those.
I don't think there are any drawbacks at all.
Okay.
From a client support perspective, it would be so easy to do business elsewhere. And, I've worked in South America, I've worked in the Caribbean, I've worked in the Middle East, I've worked in Europe. And one of the things that got me that work was that I knew how to do that, right? That I could demonstrate logistics, remote support, and all of those things. Now, I think it would be very challenging, for example, to compete with a PSNI integrator. I mean, PSNI has among its memberships, absolutely the cream of the crop across the globe, and they are local almost everywhere. And so some of the things that I was able to do as an internationalist, and having the ability to work in various places and cultures and languages, that's not valid anymore. There can be local support. So that's one of the changes, and that came along with the fact that of course, now I can get a quarter pounder and a grande latte pretty much anywhere on the globe. I'm not sure if that's good or that's bad, but we live in a very globalized world, and you adjust and go with that.
What is the line from Pulp Fiction? La Royale with cheese?
Tim, just to jump in there, and I think it complement what both of them said. It will provide access, but it doesn't mitigate risk. And this is the thing that going global is. And I will say a larger company can possibly absorb more risk. A smaller company in and of themselves, even if they can get one of these larger distributors to work with them on financing, and many of them have great mezzanine level financing, product financing. Again, it's another value. Brock said it's just really no downside there. But that doesn't mitigate the risk of accountability for deliverables. And certainly you work with a company who knows that really well. And that can never be underestimated. And thanks, Brock. A good compliment. Certainly, our organization. We do have good people, but I'll tell you what, things can go off the rails globally. Easy.
Yes, no question. My first project in Qatar, we had a payment term foisted on us that I think we were getting the last 15% of our money, or maybe it was 10%. 400 days after the project turned on, and so I was very fortunate to have had a father that worked in an engineering capacity internationally throughout his career. And when I asked him, he said, "Oh, just assume you're not going to get that money and price accordingly." And so when we got the money. Wow, was that a profitable job?
Oh, all right. Next story comes to us from AV Magazine, based on a article from Lazio Bach. Lazio was the HR director for Google from 2006 to 2016. Lazio says that this hybrid thing is just a fad, mainly because older managers, quote unquote, don't know how to lead hybrid workers, and as a result, they're going to force folks back into the office. Alexis, when you're looking at this, whether it's where you guys are or the folks you're talking to in the industry, does that ring true? Is hybrid just a fad, or is it here for a while?
It's you know, it's an interesting it's an interesting idea. I can see so many different sides to this, right? On the live event side, we want people to be back in person, right? That's how it works for us. We have had to adjust to go from completely virtual to hybrid events. And I think there was a lot of pushback from a lot of organizations to be able to do hybrid events before COVID. So now here we are, and we can do these events. And yes, we can be back in person, but there's still people who want to be able to watch from home or from their office for lots of various reasons, including, inclusivity and people with differing abilities being able to participate. So obviously I want that to happen. On the other hand, I think about the fact that work from home is not available for everybody. We need our technicians. We need people in the field to be able to go to job sites, to be able to do their work. So they mentioned in the article that it is kind of an elite idea that some of us can work from home. I'm personally 100% work from home at the moment. And I really miss having to go into being able to go into an office. I don't necessarily want to go to an office every day. I don't want to go 3 days a week because the commute, the lack of a commute, I just feel like I'm so much more productive and more efficient not having that extra hour before and that hour at the end of the day. And it's just, I just feel like a happier, more productive person. But his argument all hinged around older managers don't know how to manage people virtually, right? And I just find that the most offensive statement of everything that he said, he had to say. So let's not figure out how to give people tools, these older managers. I'm probably considered an older manager at this point, but let's not get these managers the tools they need to be able to support their people, to be able to manage their people. No, let's just bring them back in 3 days a week because it's going to go away anyway. If we don't think about the future of work, it's so much younger people, digital natives, who this is all they do is they're on the computer, they're on their phone. We have to figure this out. And the answer is not, oh yeah, just come back into the office because older managers can't figure out how to manage their people. I thought that was asinine.
All right. Brock is somebody who has also gone. I wasn't going to say he's an older manager. He's also remote. Good Lord. But you're also an older manager. So, can you manage people hybrid? Does this this person that used to be at Google, Lazio, do they have a point here?
COVID has been spectacular for the business that I'm managing right now because it allowed us to tear down all of the old ways of doing things and create new ones. And so, for example, the daily touch bases that the teams have online in the morning, the various teams across the business, have been spectacular ways for individuals to let the group know what it is they're doing that day and what their priorities are, but also to ask the group for help. This is what I need from you. And, Chris, you've heard lots of this over the years from integrators about the challenges of handoff between silos, between sales and engineering and project management and service, and then, finance messing around with everybody. Well, every morning, if you need something from somebody, you can just ask. And you're asking under the bright sunlight of a group. And, there's no motion, there's no picking on, there's no, none of those stopping by the office and, rapping on somebody's door and saying, where the heck is the blank? It's just hey, I'm working on this, and as a result, I need that from you. And if it happened today, it would be great. But if it's tomorrow morning by, say, 8 a.m., that's fine too. I think this Laszlo person has found, I think it's him, has found himself offside and out of touch with the reality not only of today's worker at any age, because statistically we're finding that, or at least I'm reading, that it's older workers that actually are benefiting from and preferring work from home days more than younger workers. And so, and as if he's doing HR consulting, he should be focused on how do I recreate a workplace that makes it that makes that time that we have together, the 1 day or 2 days a week, because we can't get Alexis in for 3. But how do we?
And you can't get Brock in for any, just for the record.
No. Well, yeah. So
Well, yeah.
Right.
my contract does say once a week, and so we're now meeting once a week, and every day that people are coming together, we're having lunch together, and we're trying to figure out
That's cool.
different ways of dealing with that. People are coming back from the field. Just to participate in the lunch part of it, and you're kind of sacrificing some of the productivity hours that otherwise you're gaining in front of. But I mean, this 3 to 5 years, yeah, hybrid may be 3 to 5 years before offices disappear altogether. In which case, none of us have jobs, because we are in the business of equipping places where people gather and communicate with each other. But no, this is a magical time, both in the workplace and for those of us in the audiovisual unified communication world that that are helping our clients figure out how to best communicate with their teams and collaborate amongst teams wherever they are.
So I will tell on myself and my team here at CTI real briefly. I run an incredible marketing team, very talented folks. We've gotten to the point where a handful of our folks are entirely remote. We're based out of St. Louis, but we have a young man who is an editor up in Detroit. We have another young lady who is out of Little Rock, Arkansas. Another one from Kansas City, and so we have gone to about once every month, once every other month, on a Friday afternoon. We have a happy hour, right? It is a virtual happy hour. It is something where if we're working from home, if you want to partake in an adult beverage at that point, that's entirely up to you. If you don't, then don't, right? But it gives us a chance to just goof off and connect with each other. But I like your lunch thing there, Brock. Chris, something that Alexis said there is some disparity here, and it's something that we heard last week at the PSNI Super Summit with a number of the speakers there. You have a group here in AV too. You have a group here who can't work from home, right? You can't install conference rooms remotely. You can't do live events remotely. Talk for a second about what you and you're hearing from your members about getting back into the office and getting back in place, whether it's hybrid or that's 100% coming back into the office.
Yeah, so I kind of live outside of the fence, right? So I always think very flexible because I'm not accountable for payroll per se, right? And that's within the structure people mostly have to live. One thing I say all the time that's so important to us is innovation always follows disruption. And if you follow it, and you're Brock and my age or close, he's not my age, but it has always been the case from the time of zero to now. And we have just gone through a real major disruption. The disruption is likely going to be addressed with some form of technology as to what that new normal will look like, right? And you're spot on. So you have those people who need to be there, but there's a couple of things that have really come up now that when I had my company didn't come up. Sustainability. If someone would have said that, I would have said, what are you talking about? And yet you have these large enterprises today who are looking at things like reducing the carbon footprint. And if you leave people around the world and they don't go into the office 3 times, you've lowered the carbon footprint worldwide, right? that's a valuable if that's one of their main points. If you look at the scarcity of this thing, you had the big resignation, then you have that was a big mistake, and now you have this big return. But the difference is the return is on their terms, not on our terms, right? As a principal or an owner, and now we're having to listen and say what does work best within this disruption. And in our case, I think there's a little less conflict when we're not all in the room. And I think there is some space, and Brock nailed it within our industry. And everybody who's ever spent any time in it, there is opportunity and conflict and learning and sharing and, gnashing of teeth all within sales and project managers and engineering and everybody installers. And most of them are going to have to be there. But you get outside of that. I mean, in your case, Tim, you have people who are doing CAD drawings in India. You've got people doing things other places. Why not? Everybody's got to work somewhere. And I think it's really opened the doors to finding better talent, great talent, if we get a little more flexible in our thinking. And I think it was a great point. I think that person would look like me, probably, that wrote that. I just happen to totally disagree. An old, white, gray-haired guy, right? That's the way it was always done. And I don't know. I think it's all about technology is going to come up with those solutions. And if manufacturers will quit making products, and I think they've done better, make products and then tell people they should use them, and reverse that and listen to people and then make products that meet what they want. And to me, that's where innovation impacts disruption.
Not in this lifetime. Next lifetime.
It's my dream.
Yeah.
Do not wake me up.
I think those are all great points, and I think even more that the people that are coming back they have more of a say in how they want their lives to look like.
And they should have had it before, right? But they didn't, because disruption didn't take place. And I think you're spot on. I think it's changed the level of respect across the board. I really do. I hope it has. Let's say that.
Yeah. I will end this with one story of a friend of mine who also has a disparate, staff. And the city that they're in, up in Minneapolis, the vast majority of their other folks are there. But he's got a graphic artist where their main coworker is someone in Southern California, right? So they're already separated. And having a conversation with her the other day, they're getting back. I think they were 3 days a week or whatever. She came to me and she's like, I don't mind coming in like one day, but the person I talk to isn't in here, right? The person I work with on a daily basis is not here. Is it okay if I work the rest of the week from home remotely? Because the person that my coworker is remote anyway. And it's one of those things where he, thankfully, right, he was flexible enough to say, yeah, absolutely, that completely makes sense. Why not, right? Why would you drive in a half an hour, 45 minutes in traffic to sit at your desk to talk on the computer to somebody in Southern California, right? It doesn't make sense, right? So I think some of this is, and I think all three of you said this in some way, shape, or form, it's common sense, it is being flexible, it's talking to your employees and kind of helping them be successful, right? Give them what they need to be successful. So,
the challenge, though. So Laszlo used a fear argument. You're not going to get a promotion. You're not going to get a good review. The one challenge is that the individual in Southern California is the only person in that business who really knows that graphic artist. And that's unfortunate. A lot of our businesses do function well because of community and collaboration. And while we can exchange ideas very effectively on a platform like this, it's tough for us to get to know each other well enough to be able to collaborate. And so there is great value in in-person time. and cooler conversations. And I have a huge heart for the 20 somethings who are living in their folks' basement or sharing a 4 to a 1-bedroom apartment as they start their careers. They don't want to work from home. They want to work someplace better, and they want to get out into the world, and they need to be or want to be mentored, and they want to absorb information about the career that they're embarking on, and you don't absorb on a video call, right? It's just back and forth. So there's and it's not just the kind of events, Alexis, that PRG equips. It's the standing on the street corner after work and saying, I'm having a problem with this. Could I just ask you? Or the things that are overheard in the cubicle. And so again, with our filters and being another old white guy like Chris, I might be able to say, I don't need that anymore.
Right.
I already know everything. I've already forgotten everything I need to know. I'm not typical. And so as a manager, I need the empathy to recognize that I have different kinds of employees with different needs. And I'm in a growth phase where I am, and I'm hiring. And part of the strategy is trying to figure out how do I bring all these folks together into a cohesive unit, while at the same time enabling those who don't want to commute an hour, which in Toronto is a very common thing. So it's a brilliant topic. I'm sure we'll be talking about it for a long time. And Alexis, I completely get how you started. I want to go in the office. I want to get out of here. I want to connect with people. I don't want to drive in 3 days a week. Or in your case, you're probably driving out.
Yeah.
Brock, you said something there, and I'm sorry, Tim, but it's a great point. I like to study this stuff, and I don't know why, but if you look at corporations, alliances, and alliances like ours, but I'm talking about code-sharing alliances with airlines. I mean, there's so many global alliances unrelated to our space, very large corporations. If you look at those corporations and alliances and small companies, one of the underlying issues that create failure is a lack of trust. And oftentimes a disparate group, as you called it, Tim, comes from a lack of tactile relationships, and then that does take away some trust. It doesn't necessarily work away from trust, but it doesn't build trust. And we saw it in the last 2 years internally, where we have 105 or 10 companies around the world. And when we're meeting 6 to 8 times around the world in different parts, and whether it's Bangkok or Amsterdam or Barcelona or Houston last week, whenever we do that, then that trust kind of comes back together because people are back together. Yeah. The minute we go 2 years without those meetings, trust isn't gone, but trust isn't improved.
No.
And we're rapidly trying to get back together as quick as we can, because I think it's right. Trust is not typically transmitted well over video. It helps, but it doesn't do it all.
Yeah.
I think it's the mandate part of it that's the issue. You can have those meaningful relationships with a younger worker and a more senior worker without the mandates. And Brock, to your point, I think that's part of making sure that those managers have the information. These are what my employees need. This is how I need to get it done to make sure that they have what they need, so that everybody can be mentored, so that everybody can feel like their time is well spent, or feel like they're productive, all of those things. It's the mandate part of it that's the biggest issue for me.
Yeah. All right. That'll be a good place to stop. Thank you all so much. Mr. McGinnis, how do people connect with you or nationwide?
I'm on Twitter at Brock McGinnis every once in a while, and you can certainly find me on LinkedIn. Every Chinese manufacturer does, so I'm there.
That's at Brock McGinnis on Twitter.
Yeah.
You can go yell at him now.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Alexis, thank you, ma'am. How do people connect with you?
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim. You can reach me on pretty much all the platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, Alexis LeBroy, and I'm also on Instagram, Alexis LeBroy, although I'm still trying to figure that one out. So
You and me both. Taylor, our guy, keeps yelling at me that I don't do it well. So, Mr. Miller, thank you, sir. How do people connect with you or PSNI?
www.psni.org, and I am as well on LinkedIn and Twitter. Not as active as many, but I could be found. But definitely go to PSNI. Take a look. You'll find me.
That is for sure. For me, for Tim Albright, don't follow me on the Twitters because at this point, the Bears aren't playing. Not that they ever play, but they're not playing right now. But the Blues are doing, I don't know, decent. There's a 50-50 shot. I'm not saying they're going to win the Cup this year, but, better than the Devils. I'm just going to say that. That was for my buddy Bradford Ben. But go by the website, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You will find this program and a host of others. While you're there, we've got a couple things coming down the pipeline. Next time I get to see Chris in person, we'll be in Barcelona at Integrated Systems Europe. We are heading to Barcelona for ISE 2022, the 10th through the 13th of May. So you can hang out with us there. We've got a tweet up happening there, thanks to our friends at Poly. So you can register for that. That is on the 10th from 3 to 4:30 in Poly's booth. I'll also be doing some content there. If you're not going to ISE, but you're going to Infocom, we have a tweet up there as well. That one's brought to you by our friends at Starin. That is on Wednesday. You can check that out Wednesday, the 7th of June, from 4 to 6 p.m. Over in the West Hall at Infocom 2022. So thank you all for joining us. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we have for AV Week.